Look, we're just going to skip this small talk today because right at this very moment, there's a massive, completely invisible battle happening over the architecture of our digital future. I mean, think about it. Every time you prompt an AI, save a file, or run a complex calculation, you're essentially outsourcing your cognitive architecture to a giant system you don't actually own. So today we're diving into the sources to ask a pretty profound question. Who truly holds the pen? And who owns the machine that actually does your thinking? Welcome to The Explainer.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We're charting a path through 5 key areas. 1. The VC casino crisis. 2. The 10-year vineyard. 3. The Agentic Publishing House. 4. Supplying metabolic capital. And finally 5. Securing creator sovereignty.
All right, Section 1. The VC casino crisis and the broken status quo. We really have to start by looking at the current, deeply flawed venture funding system.
Just take a second and think about that quote. It perfectly captures the brutal reality of what the sources call the liquidator VC model. It basically operates exactly like a frantic Las Vegas casino floor. It's completely extractive, obsessed with quick financial multiples, and it rides these wild, incredibly short 2-year hype cycles. In this kind of system, brilliant founders are literally treated as disposable lottery tickets. The only thing that matters is unnatural, rapid scale, and it just leaves behind this massive wake of burned-out creators and abandoned code.
And to make matters significantly worse, look at the environment these founders are actually thrown into. 250,000. That's the estimated number of overlapping, active patents on a single modern smartphone. It's a suffocating legal thicket. It's basically an invisible minefield that corporate giants use to crush independent creators. I mean, 250,000 ways to get sued before you even launch. It guarantees that if you try to innovate inside that casino model, you're getting dragged into court before your idea even sees the light of day.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 10-year vineyard and the new philosophy.
To escape that suffocating patent thicket and the inevitable burnout of the casino, we are seeing a massive structural shift toward a completely different funding philosophy. Instead of the liquidator VC, we have the legitimacy VC model, and it throws the casino playbook out entirely. It functions much more like a 10-year vineyard. Why 10 years? Because truly world-changing technology simply cannot be rushed in a 2-year artificial hype cycle. You have to plant the seeds, weather those incredibly harsh early seasons, and meticulously cultivate a yield that actually sustains and compounds over a full decade. It's about fundamental value, not just a quick exit strategy.
Section 3, the Agentic Publishing House and the mechanism.
So, to actually make this 10-year vineyard function in the real world and bypass that ridiculous $250,000 patent thicket, modern venture capital is structurally evolving into something new. Instead of acting like a gambling floor throwing cash at a hype cycle, it acts much more like a historic 1950s publishing house. Think about a classic publisher. They didn't just print paper. They meticulously fact-checked, edited, archived, and legally locked in copyright to protect the author. In this new economy, running a media or tech enterprise is basically running a venture architecture lab. The lab uses cryptography and raw compute to clinically validate and permanently protect a creator's code. It's all about securing undeniable mathematical truth over pure financial speculation.
So how does this semiotic bridge actually work? It's a 3-step process that builds our beautifully messy human imagination directly into flawless hardware execution. Step 1 is human intent. Creative, associative, but highly probabilistic and prone to errors. Step 2 is where we cross the bridge, translating that intent into strict structured text, like a JSON file. The sources playfully call this precise translation the divine script. And step 3 is the deterministic hardware, the agentic cell, which executes the actual mathematical commands. We are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking with lightning to perfectly automate our imagination, while you, the human, remain firmly in the pilot seat.
Let's move to Section 4, supplying metabolic capital and the fuel.
These new agentic publishing houses don't just hand out standard financial checks, they supply metabolic capital. They provide the literal metabolic engine, the massive, raw AI computing power and physical server infrastructure required to realize your vision at scale. And they do this to help you mathematically prove your record of sweat. Now, in the digital world, sweat isn't physical labor. It's the provable electricity, the verifiable computing cycles, and the massive server uptime permanently anchoring the bit-perfect truth that real energy was spent to execute your digital mission.
To put that into perspective, just look at this recent measurement, 55.5 million tokens of metabolic flux. What does that actually mean?
It represents a massive, undeniable volume of AI inferences and verifiable server computations occurring at the very edges of the network. It's equivalent to thousands of hours of intense computing power perfectly legally recorded. It stands as a literal digital monument proving mathematically that real effort took place. This fundamentally redefines your role today. You're not just a solitary genius pulling ideas out of a vacuum anymore. You're the algorithmic orchestrator. The machine handles the tedious execution, but your directed metabolic sweat creates the reality.
Finally, Section 5, Securing Creator Sovereignty and the Resolution.
So how do we use this metabolic capital and structural publishing house to actively protect you, the human author, from corporate extraction? We use specific Web3 legal engineering tools to physically anchor your sovereignty directly into the silicon. First up, the eGPL. This acts as a defensive shield. If a massive closed-source AI tries to scrape your code, this license legally forces them to disclose their own source code. It's a highly effective poison pill. Second, we use smart contract standards like ERC 7827, which acts as a secure digital vault, perfectly mapping your ownership into a legally controllable record. And third, ERC 6969, which seamlessly routes network transaction fees directly back to you, totally cutting out the centralized middlemen. Together, these tools create what are called permissionless patents, a brilliant system where abundance compounds naturally, and your compensation is hard-coded right into the architecture.
As this entire landscape of startup funding and digital architecture radically shifts beneath our feet, your role is fundamentally transforming. So I want to leave you with this critical choice about where you're going to build your digital legacy. Are you going to invest your intent in the fast, extractive, and ultimately disposable casino of the liquidator VC? Or will you seize the divine script, utilize metabolic capital, and deliberately build in the sustainable, mathematically sound compounding vineyard? The future of how we innovate depends entirely on your answer. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.